Epiphone, Les Paul, standard, bird's eye maple. It's a real bird's eye veneer too. I went inside and looked. You can't tell from that angle, but from over here, you can see that it's a veneer. It's not solid bird's eye top. That would be crazy. I've never even heard of that. But anyways, it's a real thin veneer, and it's in a bit of a mess. This is what happens when you miss the stud in the wall and you're hanging your guitar on a guitar wall hanger, and it falls. And when it falls, when this one fell, it took the brunt of the hit on the fretboard, and a lot of the strings left dents in the frets, and so many of them up here above the 12th fret that I decided not to just go across and try to get the gouges out like I did up here. I started leveling it this way, and that's when I noticed this fret, the 15th fret, was smashed inward really low in one spot, and it was kind of high in another spot, and it wasn't getting touched at all by my leveling. I went ahead and just pulled it out. I'm going to replace it with StewMac 150 wire, and then I'll glue that up with epoxy. I carefully hold this and give it a little tap. Save that for later. There's the old nut. I keep all the parts in a little tea can labeled so I don't mess up and throw them away. The only piece I see that really looks like it's gonna hold me back from gluing this all together is this little chunk. And so I just want to get rid of it all together. The epoxy will fill all this in. Just want to make sure there aren't any little fibers of mahogany holding us back from getting these two surfaces to mate. This looks pretty clean. We got 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute epoxy. But we'll still rush. Take this caul. It's got some freezer paper, so it don't stick too bad. guys over here. I don't want to tighten them down too much right now. I want to make sure it's aligned. So just about an hour later, pop this sucker off there, and I got a whole bunch of squeeze out. It seems to pull up off of there with this razor blade, because it's still a little soft, I guess. I got it started over here. I want to scratch. I sanded it with 320 grit and put some acetone on there, and it seems to have softened the epoxy enough where I can just get underneath it and start peeling it off. So it's not the most fun process and stuff, but it doesn't look that great right now, but look at it all peeled off. It's going to leave a couple scratches, but I'm sanding the whole thing with 320 grit, and I'm going to fill it and level sand it many times. So let's see how I get all this stuff off of there. Some of that epoxy peeled right up in some pretty big little peels. Ooh, still a little epoxy right here. But that's light sanding with 320 grit. I'm going to color this in with black. So I wonder if I should even bother peeling off what's left. Maybe I'll just start laying it on. See what it looks like. I'm just starting to build up some little layer of like a 4-pound cut of shellac. Just dabbing it on there. Dropping it in. After about 8 drop-ins, I'll wait till tomorrow and then I'll level sand it with 320. And I guess we're out to start spraying it. Once I feel that it's pretty level, I'll go ahead and put about 10 coats of shellac on it. I'm just trying to build up this little joint here with some shellac. Not trying to be all smooth with it or anything. I got this real thick cut here. Somewhere, like I said, a 4-pound, 5-pound cut. I don't know. It's not exact, it's just really over thick. I just kind of like get the light where I can see where that joint was. Hopefully it starts going away after the end of the day. Oh, there's one ding down here too. I'll get this while I'm at it. Drop in a little right here every time. Well, I sanded with 320 and took a little acetone with the cotton ball and got off all the residue from the epoxy, quite a bit of it anyways. Now I'm taking that 320 also gives the shellac a little tooth to grab onto. I'm just going to mop in this thick shellac. That shellac is like a 4 or 5 pound cut. And I'm just going to mop it in. Kind of like a chef would mop on some barbecue sauce to a brisket, you know. Just dropping it in. After a few days, I'll spend all day dropping it in, building up a thick mess of the stuff. And then I'll let it harden for a few days. I'll sand it with 320 till it's smooth. And then I'll color this transition right here between the headstock and the neck. Just this 1.5 inches or so with a dark brownish black. It'll conceal or disguise this crack permanently. And then of course I'll build up many layers of thick, not too thick, but like 20 coats of clear shellac. Alright, it was 2 days, I think 3 days, and I sanded this back with 320, and I'm perfect right here. Don't need to drop fill any more shellac in this area, but I need a little bit here, and I need a little bit here. I think this side's pretty good. This is the treble side, so no one ever really looks much. I think I'd just sand that a little bit further. Let's look at the other side, the black side. I think what I'll do now is I'll reestablish. I lost my little hole here, filled it in accidentally. I'm going to re-drill that hole, reestablish where that is, and I think I'll drill another small hole right here and see if I can flood that area. That's like an air pocket underneath the urethane where it cracked. I think I'll try to drill a little hole here and flood that with some thin shellac. I got a 1.5 pound cut right here, and then I'll start doing black shellac again over this area, and then that will be ready for some clear coats. Okay, I've reestablished that hole for the truss rod cover, and then I drilled another secondary hole right there to try to see if I can drop in this thin, yeah, there it is. It's a thin shellac. I'm going to tip it this way, see if I can get gravity to help me out here. Get a bunch of it on my brush and see if gravity will get it down in there. I don't know. Maybe it's going in there. I don't know. Not 100% sure it's all in there, but I don't want to drill another little hole, but I might just take some black shellac and paint this whole stripe right there where the crack was. Alright, a little video of me dropping in a little black shellac. Don't want it the brush real wet. If the brush is real wet, what it does is it builds up around the outer edges, If it's if the brush is fairly dry, it'll work out better. I'm still going to spray over all this with many coats of clear. So this is just a real thin layer to disguise the old crack. I've got it real level already. I drop filled and I sanded back with 320. Now I'm just getting a little color on here. Kind of like stitching up the old wound with black. Get her ready for some clear coats. That was a wet brush. If you accidentally get a couple real wet strokes, you can quickly go over them with a little bit of a drier brush stroke, and that smooths over that buildup that I was talking about. So, looks ugly right now, but after a good clear coat, maybe about 10 coats, it's time for some more thick shellac drop-ins into the crack. This is where I mop it on in. Over here at a low spot. Yeah. Alright, so I do that, I wait 10-15 minutes, and I do it again. Some sandpaper pulls. Sanding where it needs to be sanded. Got it all sanded. I'll wipe it with a little naphtha. Gonna get some two kinds of shellac I have here. This is the platinum blonde. The regular cheap stuff. We'll go with the platinum blonde. I'll wipe this on. Just wipe this area. First coat. Try not to miss a bunch of spots this time. For the second coat. Not too shabby. I'll give this puppy a couple wipes. See what happens. Back at it with the black. There's that line, the seam, of course. I'm trying to make that go away with some extra coats of black shellac, and it's starting to go away. It's starting to blend in a little bit more. A couple more coats and then I'll be able to do some clear coats. Doing a little mixing here to mix up the color to airbrush into this area. And what I did is I took 5 drops of Kalamazoo brown, and 5 drops of this. In the past I have not used this. This is the first time I'm going to use this Schwartz Black. It makes it a little more opaque. It's not. I mean, it looks super dark. Like it's in the bottle. But I painted a little bit onto this clear plexi so you could see how dark it is. It's not that dark. But I'm going to put a couple layers and just airbrush it across like this. So I'll be able to darken it as I go with each pass. Thought I might do a little wet sanding, see if I can get rid of this line right there. See that crack there? It's 800 grit. Well, I had to sand all that back off. There was a little, just too much black in it. I think I'll put in some opaque brown and translucent red to get more of that reddish from the body into this cover-up. Just use the Prevail sprayer can for this. If it turns out good, I'll start laying on at least 15 clear coats. Try to keep it from wrinkling once I put string tension. There it is, I redid it with a brown red. I just think it matches the body a little bit better now instead of all that black. I also mentioned putting the color into the Prevail sprayer, but there's a big, I would have to mix up such a big batch of color that seemed like a big waste. There's such a small amount of color that goes in on that, and this was what it looked like right here. Mix it up. See that? What's that look like there? There it is. That's my color in an airbrush jar. So I just airbrushed it. I mean, it doesn't use much at all. I got the airbrush back out and I sprayed that, and now I've done a few coats of shellac. This is the Prevail sprayer, and this is what it looks like when I spray it. Come around here, spray that baby. Always want to start the spray while you're not directly on the work itself. I'm going to start the spray when you're off the work. Okay, I'm going to start spraying over here and work my way onto here, come off, and then end spraying. You don't want to start and stop while you're aiming it at the work, because you could have a lot of splatter at the start or the end of each spray. That's it. I'm up to 11 coats on the back side of the neck. Thinking about doing a little polishing now. I wet sanded my headstock and my back of that neck. I got the Epiphone. It's got a real satin finish to it now. It's got a real satin finish, no gloss. I've got fine polishing compound. It's so fine. It's so fine. This is a Viva paper towel. I don't know what happened, but Viva hadn't been around for a while. So I resorted to using old t-shirts, which is cool. Need to get rid of them old t-shirts. Well, anyways, I saw some Viva paper towels. I think I was at Big Lots down in Franklin the day I went to Woodcraft Company. I was like, I'm gonna get me some of them Viva paper towels because I like to polish stuff with them. They don't scratch up the finish nearly as bad as a cheap paper towel would. But they've changed a little bit. They've got a texture on them now. And they say Viva. The other ones I've had are more like linen. It's shining up all right. You can see that's starting to get a little gloss to it. Fine compound. Because I went all the way upwards to 2,500 grit wet sanding this earlier today. In 2 days, it'll be 3 weeks since the customer dropped this off. Completely snapped off. And looks pretty good with some fine. Yeah, pretty good. I'll do the swirl remover next. Look at that. All by hand. Can't tell for sure how this is all going to turn out. I mean, I don't know if the truss rod needs some adjustment. I don't know if the truss rod works. Seems to be working. I mean, everything should be okay. As long as the epoxy holds up. I'll find out in a few. I'm going to put these Dunlop 9 through 42 electric nickel. Very nice. Well, one of the very last things I need to do, the old nut got broken when it fell. Can you see? Just a little bit of damage. Like a broken tooth. The new one, of course I got to fit it in. It's just an Epiphone pre-slotted. It doesn't really match the cream binding is good. I like the yellow a lot better. I put that new switch tip on there too. That was missing. It must have got knocked. Oh, that's not too bad of a match. So I think I'm gonna drop in the old baking soda onto this one. Yellow it with some vintage amber if I need to. Shouldn't take too long. Alright, I dropped it in. Looks pretty good. All this backlight handle, it's real easy to see. I think I got it fixed up alright with this these products. This is thicker than this. This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. Water thin. A little filing and sanding. I'm going to have to recut these for some 800 grit. I'll do 1,000, 1,500. Give it its counting balance.